I'm sure we've all walked at night. That's for sure. Walking at night to see where you go. Country roads, rugged pitted meadows. A small graveyard next to a small mound. Like a small mound, a piece of wheat under the secretive and ghostly, ghastly wind blowing through. One's heart trembles. In his dazzling alleyway, like a labyrinth. In the middle of the night when the night shift home. In the absence of light call, around and around, as if you cannot see the end of the dark. People are uncertain, fear, and depression. But any bold, walk back and forth there is no problem. Can be afraid of small courage is 3 steps a turn back, 5 steps a trot. Afraid of the shadow behind or invisible footsteps closely followed, you say afraid of it. 2010 almost to the end of the year, when I was full of vigor, drive, dare to fight and fight. A look of vitality. At the end of the year, I just returned home from the field. Suddenly the love of the family told me, her aunt's brother, that is, my brother-in-law, want me to go to him to do a few days, that is, an 8-month job, that is, specifically do what work. My uncle's brother-in-law is a field exploration work, always outside, the wind and food, very hard, no black and white. Due to the lack of manpower, want to ask me to go to help, also, just a few months of work. It's very good. And finally I boarded the train to the town of Qingfengtian in Jianping County, Liaoning Province. A bumpy road, my brother-in-law's shed appeared in front of my eyes. Compact and uncomplicated work began, and every now and then, because of the shortening of the work schedule, it was necessary to work back-to-back shifts and night shifts. In that case, I could only work all night and fight at night, but I couldn't help it. It was also for the sake of the work. On the contrary, I can do the night shift and sticky self-congratulation, because what? Because once, my brother-in-law suddenly told me about a horrific incident that happened here. The cause of the incident was, on our way to the drilling platform, there was a horrible thing of cooking people in oil. It was said that a 20-something-year-old girl was strangled to death in the grove. And what was more horrible was that the person who strangled the little girl even set up a cauldron in the grove, lighted up the fire, and hard to the little girl to deep frying. That is a piece of green shade deep grove, forest deep quiet hidden, usually pass there during the day, will feel a burst of unnatural. Is the kind of breathless feeling, very depressing. The whole piece of the entire grove area, there is no one at all. Pass by there in broad daylight, you say afraid of not afraid. When I heard that, I was feeling inspired to write a ghost story, but I felt a strong impulse to create a ghost story. Because the night shift, if the drilling platform breaks down, then you must go back to the shed to get tools. It is inevitable that you have to walk back and forth. Back and forth from the drilling platform to the shed is more than a kilometer away. I measured as if more than a kilometer, at least 2 kilometers away. And the most frightening thing is that you have to go through the horror of that piece of woods. The night shift started, but it didn't last long. The drilling rig broke down, and the leader, Zhang, saw that it was no good. He was delaying the work. Suddenly he called out to me, "Jianjun, please go back and take down the tools." "This isn't working," I heard. Suddenly came to the excitement. Without saying a word, I get up to go back, just did not walk a few steps. The old Zhang called me to stop, said, "Jianjun, why this fussy? I have not said let you take what it. You are fast catching up with the rabbit." The words just finished, aside the brother-in-law began to laugh and giggle at me straight music. To me, is a little red in the face, a little embarrassed. Old Zhang let me get more welding rods and angle grinders and drill bits on the drill pipe. Without further ado, I got up and disappeared into the darkness of the drilling platform. All the way. Because it is too dark, the flashlight light shot out of the light as if a ghost fire. Illuminated in the road surface faintly weak. There are a number of times I almost fell into the pits on the side of the road. It feels as if someone intentionally pushed me into the pits, as if. I pretended to be calm, although there are some small joy, but after the impulse is some fear. What is terrible to what? Walking, I suddenly realized that there is something wrong. The road in front of a piece of the road cannot see. Flashlight weak to the extreme. This time, a cold wind blowing over. A cold began to be a little shivering. I used the weak light, a look, brain buzzing almost into a fainting state. Just now that burst of joy disappeared, replaced by inexplicable fear. Legs and stomach at this time do not listen to the beginning of their own control. Unknowingly has gone to the piece of fear of the grove. Inside the forest, whistling wind seems to pass out a few sounds. The wind sweeps through. The goosebumps on my body unnaturally emerged. In order to write, inspiration is also spelled out. At this time, the wind in the woods blowing more and more fierce. Suddenly the wind seems to be mixed with the sound of crying. I dare not think too much, do not dare to stay, quickly walking forward. Before the idea of those hunting now think about it seems to be how stupid. I walked quickly, fearing that there would be an abnormality behind me. And at this time, the strange sounds in the forest seemed to have abated somewhat. But I still did not dare to turn back, thinking only of hurrying to the workhouse. About a long walk, I was almost apprehensive, stumbled, and touched the black to the shed. Take the tools needed. I took a short break, remembering the horror of the moment just now. No, the price of walking at night is still not fun. Besides, I am writing horror stories. That is not an exception, because I am also a normal person. A bag of cigarettes of effort, I am ready to go, almost trotting on this wimpy look. Really sorry for the previous lofty feelings. But walking to the grove, my heart is about to jump out, no choice but to hurry. Another gust of wind came, the wind whizzing past. The miserable sound, really feel the woods inside. Everything that happens very unusual. I quickly whip, simply like a wild horse, off the reins of the wild horse indulgence to spread the joy of walking. In fact, it is a trot. Can run and run. I suddenly feel my body lost center of gravity. Just feel like falling into the abyss of pain. The ears of the whimpering, what cannot be heard clearly. The head exploded like a very painful trance. I was confused, lying on the ground, and began to fumble with the flashlight. Suddenly, in a daze of chaos, I found in front of me seems to float over a white shadow, straight to me on the pounce. I do not know what is in front of me. I only feel that the wind around the sudden rise. I was in front of the scene. I saw completely. Reversed my view of materialism, as if I was possessed by ghosts, twitching a few times. Just in the flash of lightning, I finally fumbled for the flashlight. I can't think too much. I don't dare to look at what it is. I only know that it is a white shadow. I can't see who it is. I picked up the flashlight and staggered towards the direction of the drilling platform. Walk a few steps, the sound of footsteps behind me is like a shadow following. It is really a little bit scary. I didn't dare to turn around, but the footsteps seemed to be getting closer and closer, as if they were right behind me. My body has been drenched with sweat from fear. But the footsteps did not stop. For a moment, just so slowly followed. I do not know, what is it? It was horrible. Finally, the afterglow of the drilling platform into my eyes. The old Zhang and my brother-in-law look at my disoriented look, did not speak. Even my brother-in-law did not giggle at me. They know that I walked this night after the horror of the scene is how incredible and fear. A moment they also do not speak. Drilling platform methodically began to enter the track. The machine roar broke the previous horror. But I was not in the mood. Remembered just a moment ago the horror of the moment. I also began to be silent for a moment. Even if it is that the excitement of the hunt, at this time like a kite with broken strings, was washed away to the clouds. Just dry for a while. This time the heavens are not beautiful. Seems to be intentional with us, like the sky began to pattering rain. Rain more and more is not small, gradually big up. No way, Lao Zhang and my brother-in-law ready to go back to the shed to hide from the rain. But must leave a person to watch the well platform. I am the right person. After they both left, I suddenly remembered that there are still a few lonely graves by the well platform. And at this time, the rain is falling heavily, the wind is blowing more and more fierce. A kind of ominous foreboding began to slowly grow. I hid into the well platform side of the tent. The whirring of the north wind blowing to be the whole tent is about to flip over seemingly. The rustling sound of the wind blowing in my heart is very afraid, but also very I was scared and helpless. Cold wind cooling. The temperature dropped sharply. I had to curl up in a ball to resist the attack of low temperature. I do not know. I fell into a piece of chaos. My consciousness involuntarily fell into their own dreams. In my dream, I seemed to return to the grove, or that eerie feeling, only a little unclear. I suddenly heard a few cries from the woods, just whimpering. That cry is very piercing. As if there are a lot of reluctance, a lot of injustice, sometimes piercing, sometimes chilling, as if it was crying right in front of my eyes. I began to break free, began to resist. I ran in that forest, ran. Suddenly in front of me seems to stand a few people I do not know. Motionless, standing in front of my eyes, slowly towards my body began to gather. I was this suddenly appalling scene, scared, and began to hand. I was scared by this sudden horrifying scene, began to dance, suddenly a scream, "Who are you? You do not come over!" Ah! Immediately after my eyes reflexively opened, still that a piece of darkness. The wind is still blowing ferociously. Not far from a few graves on the weeds scraped very fierce. I do not dare to lie down to sleep. Open a pair of eyes waiting for dawn. But the eyes seemed to be very uncooperative, began to desert. The wind blew one after another. The rain has stopped. I do not dare to go out. The guts are indeed scared. Even if they write horror stories, cannot be normal at all. After dawn, someone came to pick up my shift. I got up and walked back to the shed. And when I was halfway there, I passed by the small forest. And my legs unnaturally started to get fat and weak. But I still walked back to the shed at a brisk pace. Back to the shed, I slept all day. How to call not wake up, or the old Zhang has experience. He knew that my night walking in the woods at night, the strange things that happened, is to hit the evil. So please come to help me exorcise my brother-in-law on the sidelines serving me, busy. After a while, I slowly began to get well. But since that night road fright, my guts began to become small. So I dare not write a horror story, a good while to get out of the horror of that atmosphere. Until now I write this story, is also 7 on 8 off, night road fright, you still dare to go.